All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video as we recap everything that happened in Niner land on a Thursday. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle, the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera, soon to open in Petaluma here in 2026. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Get the brisket chili. It's all great. But go say hi to Damon and Mary and tell them that Krug sent you. All right, let's get into some of the Niner headlines on this Thursday. According to Matt Mayoko, the 49ers have already interviewed Gus Bradley, Raheem Morris, and Joe Woods for their defensive coordinator opening. Now, technically, what does it mean? It means that the Niners could announce who their defensive coordinator is at any moment. Why? Because the league mandated Rooney Rule demands that they interview two minority candidates, and Joe Woods and Raheem Morris checked those two boxes off the list. So if the Niners want to have a three-person search with Bradley, who a lot of people think is the most likely to get the job, Raheem Morris and Joe Woods, they're completely in line with the NFL, and they have no problems. So still a lot of talk about maybe Jim Schwartz. Man, that would be exciting as well. But let's talk a little bit about these candidates. Now, Joe Woods was with the Niners before, and you know he's a defensive backfield guy. I think he's been a pass rush specialist. He struggled the last couple of years. He's been with the Raiders and some teams where he hasn't necessarily done all that well. Raheem Morris, of course, goes way back with Kyle Shanahan. They're friends, so that's a name. And Morris is a really, really respected defensive coordinator. And of course, the veteran Bradley is in-house, and we know all about Gus Bradley. And once again, there'll be an awful lot of people that will try to tell you that Gus Bradley's not a good coach. Don't believe them. Gus Bradley's a very good coach. And the players will tell you as much, and the numbers will tell you as much. You know, people will say, well, look at these numbers from 3 years ago on a defense that who the hell remembers who was on the Raiders defense 3 years ago or the Colts defense 3 years ago. But we do know that he was in charge of the Niners red zone defense in 2024, and the Niners red zone defense was 10 spots higher ranked than their non-red zone defense. Does that mean that Gus Bradley's better than Robert Saleh? I don't know, but he's hit what he was in charge of. The red zone defense was ranked 14th. The overall defense was ranked 24th. So do with it what you will, but if you're one of these I only believe the numbers guy, well, guess what? There are some numbers. Check them out. And, you know, then I get a chance to talk to a lot of the players, and, you know, to a man, they love Gus Bradley. Now, that's, you know, there's I love the teacher that's easy on me, and then there's I love this guy who makes me better. And it's like, well, why do they love them? And I heard, why do they love Gus Bradley? And I heard a lot of people say, well, you know, you don't want coaches that the players love. And it's like, that's a bunch of crap. You do want coaches that the players like. So I do think it's an interesting hire. Now, if they go with Gus Bradley, I think and don't compare him to Nick Sorensen. Nick Sorensen's never been a head coach. He had no business being the Niners defensive coordinator. And Bradley, you know, I know he's the in-house guy, and there's a lot of people that at this juncture would just like to see the Niners go outside their comfort level and go for a guy like Schwartz, who is doing it on a very high level. But he ain't bringing Denzel Ward here. He's not bringing Carson Schlesinger here, and he ain't bringing Myles Garrett here or Malik Collins. So it's really not, to me, as much about this hire. I think all these guys are good candidates. I think it's more about what the Niners do on the defensive side of the football, and we're going to talk more about that as well. They need to improve on the defensive side of the ball. Simple as that. It's about personnel. This is pro football. And you can talk all you want about coaches, and coaches are nice. Pro football. That means it matters who the players are. Was Robert Saleh suddenly not a great defensive coordinator at the end of the year? Or did they have Kendricks and Wallow and baling wire and scotch tape? And you know what I'm saying? So let's just not forget that it's a players league. This is pro football. And you don't, you know, when Shanahan and Lynch took over this organization, they immediately tried to build up the defense. Why? Because you can maybe get it done with some guys that fit your scheme offensively. You will not be getting it done with just guys on defense. You need real dudes. You need real linemen, real linebackers, real speed, real safeties, real hitters, real tacklers, real corners. So we can talk coordinators all we want. It's all about the players. Let's hear this cut, though. Greg Cosell stopped by on 95.7 The Game with our friends Dan Dibley and the great Mark Willard. And Cosell was asked about Schwartz, and let's hear this little exchange. I think this is really why this goes to the kind of the core of why Schwartz would be such a great candidate for the Niners if they indeed go this direction. We'll turn up the volume. You guys can hear this. There we go. There.
That he's viewed by offensive coaches. Schwartz is a wide nine guy. I'm a big Jim Schwartz fan. He was in Philly. Got to talk to him a little bit at times. I think that when I've talked to offensive coaches around the league, I can tell you that he's viewed by offensive coaches in the league as a very difficult coordinator to play against.
Talk to us about Jim Schwartz as a defensive coordinator. What's his style? Would that be a good fit with what the 49ers have done in the past versus now?
Yeah, I'm a big Jim Schwartz fan. He was in Philly. Got to talk to him a little bit at times. I think that when I've talked to offensive coaches around the league, they think Jim Schwartz is one of the toughest defensive coordinators to play against. He's essentially a 4-down line pass rush guy, but on the back end, he plays a lot of man coverage, but he does a lot of things that where the picture is very, very muddied for quarterbacks. Sometimes you're uncertain as to whether it's cover 2, cover 3. The look is very muddied and dirty, and it can be very hard to play against. He obviously wants his down 4 to be the foundation of the pass rush. He's not averse to blitzing, but he'd really like to have 7 in coverage and really, as I said, muddy the picture for the quarterback. But I can tell you that he's viewed by offensive coaches in the league as a very difficult coordinator.
Yeah.
Schwartz is,
so what's he talking about there? So he likes to rush 4 and drop 7. He doesn't, though he will bring the blitz. I mean, that's one thing, but he plays a lot of man coverage on the back end. And the old saying is, if you match up, you play man. If you don't match up, you play zone. But I think beyond that, I think Greg kind of hit on the finer point there, which is disguise. You can do whatever it is that you do, but the best coordinators in this league, whether they be Robert Saleh, Vic Fangio, or in this case, Jim Schwartz, they're the master of disguise. They're showing the quarterback one thing, and then they're, rotating into something else. They're making, as Greg used the terminology, muddying the waters. You're just creating a little bit of indecision. I mean, Shanahan, with all the shifts and the motions offensively, what's he trying to do? The exact same thing, but on the offensive side, create a little bit of a question, a little bit of an indecision, a little bit of a slow the defense down, make them think. And Schwartz does a lot of the same things. It's interesting. I think I'm a players guy, and I'm all about the players. Now, I don't think it's not that I think, that Schwartz doesn't matter, or it won't matter at all if they go with Bradley or Morris or Woods or Schwartz. No, these guys all are different people with different skill sets, but it's really about getting the players. You got to get the players. And one of the best cuts that I saw today was from Dante Whitner, who's on a podcast with Rod Brooks and Patrick Willis. And I thought Dante Whitner had a really interesting observation, and we're going to play this cut. And he's talking about the kinds of people and the kind of the nature of football character versus actual character. And he makes a really compelling point here at the beginning of this clip. Here's Dante Whitner on the Grit Code podcast. And let's see what he had to say. This is some good stuff from Whitner. Goldson weighs in here at the end as well.
You know what I was thinking, though, and what I've been thinking about with the 49ers and their personnel? And when I look at the LA Rams and the Seattle Seahawks and the way that they're built up front and in the trenches, I think it's time for the 49ers to get away from the safe draft picks. The guys who they're easy to control in the locker room, guys who the environment really.
And I started seeing that towards the end of my year.
It's time to go and get some guys,
some dogs,
literally from the inner city, from the Ohio States, the Georgias, like the Philadelphia Eagles did. And if you want to control that environment, put it on the player development part. You need to go and get some guys that have some off-field issues. You need to get some guys that have some anger issues. You need to get some guys that refuse not to be great football players. Yeah, it's great to get the Iowa States, the Iowas, the BYUs, and the Stanfords and the Harvards. But, man, we need to go and get some dogs. And that's what it's going to take to compete. So I've been thinking about that all week. And when I was looking at this NFC Championship, I'm like, that's the difference. They got guys up front that halfway got issues mentally. And that's what we had. We had a bunch of guys that literally, Deshaun, had something off with them.
Oh, for sure.
That's interesting. He's basically saying enough with the choir boys and enough getting guys that are gonna sing the right tune, and go get some badass defenders. And that's really what he's talking about. I don't know if I would go as far as to say go find guys with character issues, go find guys with character flaws or bad guys or criminals or anything like that. I think you got to cut the line on that point. But I hear what he's saying. It's a rough game played by rough guys, and if you're just going to eliminate every guy who's a little bit rougher than you want, are you going to have that junkyard dog mentality? The Harbaugh teams with Aldon Smith and Ray McDonald, some of these guys had some serious issues. Let's be completely straightforward and candid about that. Those guys also could play ball. So that's an interesting one, and that's one that, we may talk about later tonight on Niners Nightly. What should the Niners start to broaden their scope and start to look at some guys who may be great players but may not be the greatest guys of all time? It's just a thought. Now, CBS Sports is an interesting note today. They have Max Crosby as a potential trade candidate this offseason. They list the Niners as one of the teams who could trade for him. Once again, this has come up many, many times. I can't see Mark Davis trading Max Crosby to the Niners. I bet you he would ask the Niners for much, much more than he would ask other teams for to trade for Max Crosby. There's a rivalry between, Mark Davis and Al Davis, the late Al Davis in the 49ers. And, the last thing Mark Davis wants to do is help the Niners and watch Max Crosby win a Super Bowl, in the red and gold. He just doesn't want to see it. He just does not want to see it. So, the question is, what's the cost going to be? And the talk is a first and a second round pick. And I just don't think the 49ers, once again, this is another shortcut on a guy who's approaching 30, who's probably played his best ball already, and you're going to give away your first 2 picks in the draft. I don't think that's the route they need to go. Now, I understand why, they would feel like Crosby, because there's a lot of people that are like, hey man, you're screwing up your draft picks. Go get a sure thing. But you know what? You're also kind of shortening your window, and it's very, very difficult to really build a football team if you're always going for shortcuts. You can go with shortcuts. Who can go with shortcuts? Teams that draft really, really well consistently in a 2 or 3 year window. Then you can go for a shortcut because you can put all your assets into one additional player. Well, guess when you can't go for shortcuts? When you're missing in the draft. And that's what the 49ers, that's where they have been. And so I don't think the timing's right for the 49ers to do a big trade up in the draft, or a big trade for a Justin Jefferson, or a big trade for a Max Crosby. I know it sounds good, and you're always going to get the casual fan who doesn't know the draft prospects to say, yeah, go for it. And even the media people who don't want to delve deep enough, they're I don't want to say they're lazy, but they just don't want to delve deeply into the draft. So it's easy to go get Max Crosby, go get Justin Jefferson. It's easy. You can still be part of the dialogue and still not really follow the draft and not invest any time in preparing for the draft. So all I would say is there's a right time and a wrong time to take shortcuts. And for the 49ers, I don't believe now is the right time. One of the big issues with free agency is this electrical substation going to be an issue? And Kyle Juszczyk weighed in on this today. This is interesting from Juszczyk. He says he's a guy, he says the science is a little murky, but you can see he's not prejudging this one way or another. He wants answers. And I think this quote really reveals the mindset of the player when they're thinking about the possibility of playing for the 49ers, including guys who are already on the team.
One of those things that is just so hard to say because the science is not clear behind it. And I'm very much just a science driven person. And I want to see the numbers and the statistics and is it a coincidence that, that we've led the NFL in injuries for the last decade? I don't know. It very well could be, because a lot of injuries simply come down to bad luck, bad timing. You're in a bad position. But there's a lot that goes into it. And if that may be some of it, I don't know. I am very curious. I really am. Like, I want to see what, someone who truly understands that field, what they have to say about it. And just be curious to know. As professional athletes, like, we're looking for every little tiny advantage, that little extra 0.5%. And even if maybe that's just hurting us, a quarter of a percent, whatever it is, like, that's something that we want to know and we want to account for. So I'm very curious to see, what they find out this offseason.
So, I mean, the hosts thought it was a chuckle fest there. I don't know who the hosts of that were, but they thought it was a nice little chuckle fest. But you didn't hear Juszczyk laughing about it. He was serious. He was taking it serious. But it's an uncomfortable topic for the hosts, and that's why a lot of hosts are sitting there and they're like, I don't know, let's laugh about it because we're uncomfortable. We don't know exactly what to say. We don't know exactly how to frame this. But there was no laughing from Juszczyk there. I mean, he came across as very serious when he was discussing that. Now, Robert Saleh today was welcomed by the Tennessee Titans as their new head coach and thanked some of his current players, thanked the Shanahan family, thanked the York family, thanked the 49ers for the opportunity they provided during his presser today. It was good to see Robert in Tennessee. He looks really happy there, and we, of course, wish him well. Class act all the way through. Couple interesting thoughts on Mac Jones. According to Jason Harmon, who covers the Vikings, he says Mac Jones is, quote, definitely on the Vikings' radar, but there are a number of other teams that are also interested. So this is exactly what you want to hear if you're the 49ers. Why? Because, they've got Jordan Addison. They do have Justin Jefferson. They've got a couple receivers. You need a receiver. So there's that. And then, the fact that there are a number of other teams interested means that the market is a burgeoning market. This is a good market for Mac Jones. Mac Jones might be like the third or fourth best quarterback, maybe even better than that, maybe even ranked higher than that. He might be the second best quarterback to Fernando Mendoza that's available to NFL teams this offseason. And if that's the case, the Niners are going to get a nice little package coming back. By the way, today, on this date, 31 years ago, your 49ers, my 49ers, our 49ers, crushed the Chargers in Super Bowl 29, January 29th, 1995. If you were born in this century, you've never seen the 49ers win a Super Bowl. But 31 years ago today, the Niners were unstoppable in the Super Bowl. Steve Young put on a passing clinic. It was his finest hour. 6 touchdowns. He powered the Niners to their 5th Lombardi trophy with one of the greatest individual performances ever. Eddie D was asked at the premiere of the documentary from AMC, The Rise of the 49ers, how frustrating, Eddie, would it be to go 31 years without a championship? And he said, I wouldn't. I mean, that right there. When I heard that, I was like, whoa, Eddie is that's powerful coming from Eddie. Couple other notes before we get out of here. The 49ers ranked 20th in total home attendance for 2025 in the NFL's regular season. I thought that was really interesting. Also, Fred Warner says he believes Brock Purdy will bring the 49ers a Super Bowl. It's interesting. Fred has a lot of belief, in Brock, and it's really cool that, Fred has that strong belief in Brock Purdy. I mean, he really believes that Brock Purdy's going to get it done. And, that's a great thing. I mean, I think if you're a 49er fan, you got to, it starts with, do the players believe, and if the players believe, you got something, right? Because if the players believe, now, you've got everybody on board, I mean, whether the media believes does not matter. Whether the fans believe, it really doesn't matter. What matters is, do the players believe in Brock Purdy? And judging from Fred Warner's comments on the podcast that he did, he's like, yeah, we really like Brock Purdy, and we're confident he's going to get it done. So I think that's cool. He says he does everything elite, in my opinion, especially when he came back from the injury this year and he started to come into his own and kind of get over that foot and get his mobility back. You really saw him come to life. I think he played the best ball out of any team quarterback in the league down the stretch. His ability to process pre-snap and post-snap, I think that's what separates the good quarterbacks, let's see, and he goes on to say, from the great ones. Purdy does it with the best of them. I'm happy he's on my team. He definitely is going to get us a bowl. So that was really good to hear, just that he has that kind of confidence in Brock Purdy. I referenced the documentary that's out on the Niners, The Rise of the 49ers. Our friend Al Sacco got a brief look at it, and he tweeted out, he says, was able to see an early screening of The Rise of the 49ers, and it's incredibly well done, and it's a must-watch. Check it out on AMC and AMC Plus this Sunday, February 1st, and Monday, February the 2nd. By the way, were the Niners the most injured team in football this year? No. And I kind of feel like this the injuries are a factor, but I think there's, to some degree, it's just a convenient excuse. The Niners didn't lose because of injuries. The Niners lost because they haven't drafted well enough, period. And the rest of this is just, smoke and mirrors. Who was the most injured team as far as total games missed? The Cardinals had 303 man games missed. The Lions were second, 274. The Dolphins were third, 265. The 49ers were fourth. They lost 254 total man games to injuries. Bills fifth at 246. So you figure, okay, if you're not healthy, that's going to hurt you. What if you're super healthy? Who was the healthiest team in football? I bet you they were awesome. The healthiest team in the NFL, according to RotoWire, was the Raiders, who had 83 games missed en route to a 3-14 record. So it matters that you're healthy, but it's not the end-all, be-all. Let's just put it that way. And as we look ahead to the draft, this is a pretty good cut as well. Here's a local guy that I think the Niners ought to look at. I met his family before the big game. It's Sam Roush for the Stanford Cardinal. And Johnny Dells went on a podcast, and I really enjoyed Johnny Dells' stuff, and we'll share the screen here. And here's Johnny talking a little bit about Sam Roush, and he likes Sam Roush as a prospect. The former Stanford tight end is a strong inline blocker, and there's a lot of belief that maybe he's an all-around player with some upside as a receiver.
Tight end, Sam Roush from Stanford. I will say, keep your eyes open for that kid. He is seen as a blocking tight end coming out of this draft. He loves blocking. He takes a lot of pride in his blocking, but his pass game is so underrated because their pass game at Stanford was absolute trash. So he is flying under the radar because his pass catcher skills are some of the best at this Senior Bowl and some of the best I've seen from tight ends in 3 years. Tight end, Sam Roush from Stanford. I will say, keep your eyes open for that kid. He is.
There you go. He's a big fan of Sam Roush. Roush. I pronounce it Roush. As I said, I met Roush's family before the big game, and I really like this player. He's a strong kid. I mean, this guy's every bit of 260. He's strong, but he kind of reminds me of the former Stanford tight end, the former Niner, the late Greg Clark, who's just very, very strong, almost offensive tackle-like strength. But this guy's got better movement ability, and he's a better overall athlete. And I think this guy is going to be a better pro than he was a collegiate. I think Roush is going to be a day 3 steal. That would be a nice pick for the 49ers if they could somehow get him on day 3 of the draft. Interesting player, strong inline blocker, but you got to have receiving skills, and Roush has both. We should tell you that we are brought to you by Sleeper, and thanks to Sleeper for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. 49er football season presented by Sleeper, the fastest growing fantasy platform in the world. It's a one-stop shop. You get blazing fast news, real-time stats, group chat, season-long leagues, and, of course, Sleeper picks for daily fantasy. Use promo code Larry, and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Links in the description, terms and conditions to apply. Thanks to Sleeper. Thanks to Pig in a Pickle. Thanks to Plank Oakland. Check them out at plankoakland.com. The links are in the description, and thanks to all of you for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.